So we're now going to talk about that next lineage of evolution of land plants, and those are the gymnosperms. This particular gymnosperm you're looking at, and the one I'm holding in my hand, is a pine tree in the genus Pinus. This happens to be the white pine, Pinus strobus. Now something amazing has happened. Suddenly we have the evolution of the seed. This is the beginning of the extant seed plants that we have here on the ski hill. So the two groups of seed plants we're going to talk about are the gymnosperms and angiosperms. These are the gymnosperms. Now the seeds are held inside of these cones. This is an ovulate cone. Down inside of here, there would have been a little an ovule, and that ovule is part of the megasporangium. Okay, so mega, now we have two different types of sporangia. We have megaspores and microspores, or megasporangium and microsporangia. And it's inside that megasporangium where megaspores are produced. The megaspores now germinate and grow into female gametophytes, right? And they have gametangia, just like everything else does. We're back to normal plant life cycles. That gametophyte grows and matures. It may be 8, 10, 12 spores. It's never released. It's not like the ferns. It's not like the mosses. It's not like the algae. It is never released. The sperm come in on the male gametophytes. In the case of pine trees, they're blown about by the wind. Those are the microgametophytes, or what we know as pollen. The pollen lands on the egg, it germinates and grows, and the sperm are pushed down, or they move down into the egg and they fertilize the egg, reconstituting that diploid sporophyte, or the embryo, the zygote that grows into the embryo, but it's still contained inside the seed. The seed is this critical innovation that has a seed coat. Inside of it is some tissue that nurtures the baby embryo inside there and the baby plant. So a seed is a baby plant with its lunch, essentially.
Okay, now I want to bring you back into my iPad so we can look at some of the more microscopic features of the gymnosperm life cycle. Now, again, these are now heterosporous plants. The video is really focusing on the ovulate cones, but I want to talk about first what makes these things heterosporous, and that's the fact that they have now they make two different spores. They make microspores that mature into the microgametophytes, and microgametophytes are essentially the male gametophytes, and they make these ovulate cones that grow into, that produce megaspores that grow into megagametophytes. So they're heterosporous. They make two different types of spores, and these spores are genetically predetermined to either produce eggs or sperm on male or female gametophytes. Okay, so just to quickly review, let's look at these pollen cones, are the cones that contain the micro gametophytes. What I've done here is I've taken one of these cones out. Here's our cone, and I've made a section right longitudinally right down through it, and then I have expanded it. I have sort of magnified that section, and what you see is that each one of these here is a microsporangium. It is inside the microsporangium in all sporangia where meiosis takes place to produce spores. But specifically here, these spores that are produced are microspores, and the microspores mature into microgametophytes or pollen grains. Okay, so this is sort of the male side of the reproductive aspects of the gymnosperms. Okay. Now, if you look down here, I was spending quite a bit of time in the video talking about megasporangia because most of the innovations in land plants have taken place around the megasporangia and innovating things around retaining the zygote, retaining the embryo, nurturing the embryo, protecting it, and eventually packing it into a seed. Okay, so this is an ovulate cone, again, a longitudinal section of an ovulate cone, and I want to share with you quickly this image. So this is, if you found a pine cone, you might actually recognize this as a pine cone that has been sectioned longitudinally. And each one of these, this one's closed here, this one is more open. And each one of these little leaflets is actually a megasporophyll. Megasporophyll. Phyll meaning leaf, sporophyll meaning spore leaf, mega meaning egg. So the egg or the gametophyte, the megagametophyte bearing spore leaf. So it's right down here sort of in the axil where the ovule is being produced on this megasporophyll. And if you take a look, here's the cone again, but now a thinner section under a microscope. And here's our megasporophyll. And inside the megasporophyll again is the ovule. And if we enlarge that, what you see is essentially we have the megasporangium here, and inside of the megasporangium is now the megagametophyte. The megaspore was created through meiosis, and the megaspore began to grow by mitosis to produce this large megagametophyte inside the megasporangium. Okay, now that differentiates to have archegonia, eventually produces an egg, and now you have your female gametophyte ready to be fertilized. And all of that is inside of the integument. As you see here, the integument. The integument is sort of secondarily derived from the plant. It's outside of the megasporangium. So it's a new structure that encases the megasporangium, and that eventually becomes part of the seed coat. So remember, the ovule, and a mature ovule is a seed. So if the ovules mature into seeds, so think about a seed, an ovule is an immature seed, essentially. And a seed is basically a baby plant, if it's fertilized, an embryo with its lunch. And in the case of the gymnosperms, the megagametophyte is the nutritive tissue that nurtures the developing embryo.